The Brits have banned the ninja sword, so everything will be all right now. From the House of Commons to the House of Lords, they all know Islam is peace somehow. So relax, you Britons, put your feet up. Whether you'll fall first or France is a toss-up. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It is once again This Week in Jihad, and I once again issue the challenge. Nobody can write a jihad poem like that. And if you can, you must be a prophet of Allah. Anyway, we're here with the great David Wood. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, David.
It is kind of funny because you say this.
Yes, I do.
And it's funny. And people laugh at it. Ha ha ha. Robert gave a poem and then does this challenge. It's exactly what Muhammad is. Exactly. My poetry is better than your poetry, so my poetry must be the inspired word of God. It's like the dumbest argument in the history of the universe, and it's at the core of Islam. And that's just one of his many great arguments, like, oh, I've got a great mole on my back. How could this be? Look at the huge mole. This is the seal of the prophets.
Surrounded by warts.
Yeah, that's the proof.
That's it. Every prophet has that.
Gotta have it. That could be a show. How do we know this guy's a prophet? Check his mole.
That's right. That's it. It's in the Christian sacred scriptures. Everybody knows that, and they willingly concealed it in order to conceal Muhammad's prophethood. This is real stuff we're talking, folks, that is in the Islamic traditions.
Powerful stuff.
Yes. All right, we got a lot of jihad, and we got a lot of craziness from stupid infidels, David.
What?
Yeah, I know, it's hard to believe, but it's true. For one thing, the state of Nevada is about to institute Muslim Heritage Month. Now, the first thing you might be wondering about that, David, is they got Muslims in Nevada? They got Muslim heritage? And that's actually the thing. Nevada is actually one of several states. Connecticut, Michigan, New Jersey, and Utah already have Muslim Heritage Month. Now, not only that...
Let's get it up to all 50. Let's get up to all 50, Robert.
I'm sure we will eventually. But the thing about it is this. Nevada just deliberated on this bill, and I don't think they've decided yet. At least I wasn't able to find anything saying that at this point. But they, in deliberating the bill, those who supported the measure, and I quote from Citizen Portal, that they highlighted the bill's potential to foster inclusivity and celebrate the contributions of Muslim Americans to the state and the nation. And they said, well, this professor from the University of Nevada, Reno, stressed the need to honor the historical contributions of Muslim Americans to the local community. Unfortunately, he didn't list any. And the supporters explained that the real purpose of Muslim Heritage Month is that it represents a low-cost is good, a low-cost opportunity to showcase the progressive values of Nevadans, illustrating how the state embraces various nationalities, ethnicities, and religions. So it's not really about celebrating Muslim accomplishments at all. It's about showing how progressive they are.
I mean, that's true, right? And I mean, that's not just true for them. That's true for everyone who does it. Just to be clear to everyone, there are Muslims who've done great, wonderful things and so on. Just seems that everyone's a little bit obsessed with praising anything anyone has ever done and then acting like this has something to do with Islam.
While there are Muslims who have done great things, there are not Muslims who have done great things in Nevada. I'm sorry. It's not a slur on the Muslims in Nevada. It's just a fact. There's 7,400 Muslims in Nevada, and that's less than 1% of the population.
Yeah, guys, and if you don't believe us, just give us your top 10 list, everyone, of the most beneficial Nevadan Muslims
Yep.
who've contributed to Nevada. again, guys, again, there are Muslims there are Muslim doctors and there's all kinds of Muslims and so on who've done helpful things. Just people are obsessed with, oh, you see, we need to build a day in a month and make a department of Islamophobia to combat anyone who would disagree with this guy and so on. And what is it? At the end of the day, it's just people trying to pat themselves on the back and say, look how progressive we're being with all of this. It's for themselves. And that's why you can't take it seriously. You can't take it seriously. If you have some great Muslim doing some great thing, one, I'm not going to believe that it's actually from Islam and so on, but you can have a Muslim is a person. A person could do a great thing. A person could do something amazing and heroic and could save tons of people. And I would be all for praising that person for what he's done, giving him an award, all kinds of things like that. That's just not what goes on in these things. It's all look at us. We're doing something to praise Muslims, and that's just that's just the best thing you can do in our community.
Our friend Hussein,
it's real fake.
It is fake. Our friend Hussein, Steve Mashni, says prostitution is also legal in Nevada, and I think, oh yeah, maybe they're doing the temporary marriages.
Yeah, that could be. They could make halal temporary marriage. Everyone, that's where Muhammad allowed his followers to hire prostitutes, just marry them while you're having sex with them, and therefore it's 100% halal. That's what Islam actually does. It doesn't encourage you to control yourself. It just tells you Islam is the only legitimate way to satisfy every desire that pops into your head, and you can't do it any other way. So you have to be a devout Muslim to satisfy all your desires. Because if you're not a Muslim, we're gonna end you, and then you won't satisfy any of your desires unless you really, really desire death.
That's the best dawah I've ever heard, David. I'm going to convert.
Powerful. That's the message. That's the real message.
All right. Meanwhile, we have Muslim achievements in Toronto. This is, let me make sure I get his name right here. This is Waisuddin Akbari. And he is from Afghanistan, but he now runs a shawarma restaurant in Toronto. And he went to a car dealership not long ago to get an oil change, all right? Mm-hmm. And so he's at the car dealership, and he's talking to the car salesman, who has the very interesting name of Cameron Ahmad, Cameron. I don't know if that means this guy is half Arab or if he is changing his name from Kamran to Cameron so that it's more understandable to Canadians. I don't know anything about this guy's background, but in any case, he gets to talking. Waisuddin Akbari gets to talking to Cameron Ahmad. And he says he's thinking about buying a new car. However, he doesn't want to, he's not sure that it's the right time to buy a new car because he thinks that financing a new vehicle will make him have to pay interest payments, and he's not so much worried about the interest payments as a violation of the prohibition in Islam on usury. He's worried about the interest payments going to the Israeli government.
I was thinking Jews. That would be the second one. So one, he's worried about interest. Two, got to be Jews.
That's it. And so he's talking to Cameron Ahmad about all this, and he claims, Akbari, although Ahmad denies it, that Ahmad says, yeah, it's not just in Canada, but the Israelis control all global finance. Of course, very famous anti-Semitic idea that the Jews control all the money systems in the world, but somehow can't keep billions of dollars going to Hamas. But anyway, so Akbari is going on and on about this, and he says the Jews, they are roaches and insects. They must be exterminated. And he says to Cameron Ahmad, before I go, I want you to remember my name and remember my face, because the next time you see it, I'll be on the news. I know when I'm going to die because I'm going to plant a bomb in every synagogue in Toronto and blow them up to kill as many Jews as possible. That's Waisuddin Akbari.
I'm guessing he didn't get away with it?
He got caught, indeed. He let's see. He got caught. He's in court now. He's on trial as we speak. And so this story is from, let's see, it's Wednesday. It's from Sunday. And apparently his trial is ongoing.
Well, I mean, that is the bright side of this story. It's something we've seen over and over again. You've got all the jihad. One, you have the jihadis who are like total fakes, right? Keyboard jihadis. They just run their mouths online. They're never going to do anything. Then you have the guys who are actually going to do something, but they love to talk about it in various ways. They want attention for it. They want to be praised for it, but leading up to when they actually do it, and they want people to know who did it and stuff, to be able to share the legend of the great man who did this. You have people who talk like that, but then you have people who talk because they're trying to enlist some help or find out how to build bombs or something like that, or get some bomb building materials and so on. So they start running their mouths, but eventually, there's an informant somewhere who tells on them. And so it's just good that a lot of these dudes love to run their mouths and talk about stuff, because the ones who really creep me out and the ones who are really hard to get are the ones who are just completely silent and they plan things on their own and don't involve anyone else. And those are the guys who are really hard to catch. So fortunately, this guy's an idiot.
Yes. And he probably didn't even get his oil change. I don't know. But anyway.
What a loser. What a loser. You didn't even get your oil change, you idiot.
All right. Speaking of losers and idiots, this is a very interesting story out of the Jerusalem Post, and one of the Israeli hostages who has been rescued, Shlomi Ziv. And he said that Hamas used to taunt him while he was in captivity and talk about their operatives on campus. And they were talking about American Muslims for Palestine, Students for Justice in Palestine, Columbia University, Apartheid Divest, all these groups that have been camping out on campuses, demonstrating against Israel, and so on, made up of Muslim students, but also a lot of leftist non-Muslim students. And Hamas says, these are our guys. These are our operatives on campus. How many of those leftist students who thought they were out there for a righteous cause do you think knew they were tools of Hamas?
We've been calling them useful idiots all along.
There you go.
That's what they are, and that's exactly how they're viewed. Why? Because these guys will subjugate you in a heartbeat too. They'll use you when it's convenient, but if they ever got their way, you'd be first on the chopping block.
Yeah, and the left never seems to get that. Even in 1979 in Iran, the Tudeh party, the Marxists in Iran, allied with Khomeini, and they thought he's going to reward us. He's going to give us a piece of the government, and instead he put them all in prison and killed a lot of them. And that's
Shocker.
What happened. Yeah, big surprise there.
Yeah.
It
only happens every single time, but Robert, the next time, that's when it's all going to be different.
Yeah. And I was only 17 in 1979 and hadn't been out there saying any of this, so there was nobody saying it at all.
You see that, everyone? Robert noticed no one is saying what needs to be said, so he stepped up and said it, and all he gets is condemned for the rest of his life.
Hey, that's the way it goes, man. That's Christianity for you. Don't be surprised when the world hates you. I've heard this. Anyway, speaking of hate, we got more. There's a lot of hate out there, David. And we have... You look surprised. We have Chicago. We have a police officer in the Chicago Police Department, Muhammad Khan. And Muhammad Khan actually was visiting. No, I'm sorry. The Rabbi Abraham Weinberg, who is 77 years old, was visiting his granddaughter and his great-grandchildren in the neighborhood where Muhammad Khan lives in Chicago. And Muhammad Khan gave him a parking ticket because he's a cop after all, and he was illegally parked in Muhammad Khan's parking space for handicapped people, which Muhammad Khan has because he's got a relative who's handicapped. All right? So the rabbi inadvertently parks in Muhammad Khan's handicapped parking space. Muhammad Khan gives him a ticket. But then, and this was all caught on camera, he goes back to the car. He looks through the window and he sees all these Hebrew prayer books and other paraphernalia that a rabbi is going to have in his car. And so he breaks off the side mirrors of the car, and he actually brings out a tool to cut off the side mirrors of the car. And let's see what else. He did some other damage, I believe. He kicked off one of the mirrors, broke off the other with a tool. And he was found guilty of this vandalism, sentenced to 40 hours of community service, 10 hours of anger management, and $800 to pay for damages. However, the rabbi says, well, that's fine, but he's still a Chicago cop.
Yeah, that would be my concern.
Yeah, he did not get disciplined in the slightest degree by the Chicago Police Department, which when they contacted them, they said, oh, we're still looking into this. Now, it's been over a year since this happened.
Oh, my goodness.
So the rabbi says, now, it's been over a year. He says, Khan had evidently acted in such a fashion after noticing that the owner of the car was likely Jewish. That's in the lawsuit. He's filed suit against the Chicago PD. And Abraham Weinberg himself says, why is Khan still on the force? Why are they still investigating? He already pleaded guilty. If this was a Jewish cop and a Muslim victim, would this be the same story? Would it, David?
No. No. You could change any of the ingredients. If anyone went and saw a Quran in the back of someone's car and decided to wreak havoc on the car, that person's done. You're never gonna be allowed to work anywhere at all. That Islamophobia thing will follow you around forever. In fact, Robert, we just did a show with a guy named Thaddeus who worked for a community charity that works for the homeless and so on. And he was found out by CARE and by the Columbus Dispatch, and they post a hit piece on him. And the crimes that ultimately led to him being terminated from his job were, one, he was playing a clip by Ali Dawah, where Ali Dawah called Christians crackhead clown individuals. And he said something like, I'm just responding to some crackhead clown individuals. And then it gets reported he refers to Muslims as crackhead clown individuals, making it look like he's just saying it in general and not saying it back to a particular Muslim who had just said it about Christians. And then the other crime was he did a show with you. He did a show with you, and therefore this shows that he is clearly Islamophobic. But I mean, think about this. That's not a police officer. That's not a police officer or something like that who's destroying something or something. He was a guy who responded to what someone said in a live stream. And that's enough to get him terminated from his job. But apparently you could be a police officer and be a horrible anti-Semite. And you've got a book. I will have to destroy your property.
And that's okay. And now imagine if Muhammad Khan, in his duties as a Chicago police officer, ends up having to respond to a crime that was done against some Jews, or even by Muslims. How's he going to react? This is not a guy who should be a cop.
It's a similar story. It's a similar story to those two nurses in Australia who were sitting there saying, if you're a Jew, you're in trouble. You come around here and stuff. It's like, okay, you're a person who has other people's lives and safety in your hands. Some of the people whose lives and safety will be in your hands as a nurse, as a doctor, as a police officer, whatever, will be Jews. If you clearly exhibit, if you clearly show, we want to harm these people, not just, hey, I disagreed with them at some point or something like that, but you have a desire to actually see them destroyed and so on. I don't know why you would not instantly be gone.
Indeed. And meanwhile, we have a little insight into what might be motivating people such as those nurses and Mohammed Khan. And that came just on Monday, when the Ijtihad and Fatwa Committee of the Muslim Brotherhood-affiliated International Union of Muslim Scholars out of Qatar issued a fatwa calling for all Muslims everywhere in the world, every Muslim individual, to wage jihad against Israel. What is the... surely they must be misunderstanding Islam, am I right? I can't even get these kinds of questions out. It's so ridiculous. But anyway, what's going on here?
Think about how many different ways they are not misunderstanding Islam there, right? So one, you just have Islam's obsession with victory over the Jews, with exterminating Jews and so on. But then you have drive them out from whence they drove you out, which is if a land is controlled by Muslims and is taken by someone else, you have to keep fighting until you take that land back for Islam, which that's how they view Israel and so on. So yeah, there would be all sorts of things. There would be all sorts of things which make that absolutely correct. I'm just glad that you have lots of Muslims around the world who, no matter how much they have a problem with Jews, understand they would just get crushed, and so they don't try it. And so I'm glad someone, combination of Israel themselves and some other nations, who has put the fear into some jihadi hearts. Otherwise, there'd be even more of a bloodbath than what we've seen.
It's really remarkable because, of course, there is abundant evidence of that. In 1948, the Arab Higher Committee told the Arabs to leave the area, and that's why they left. They weren't kicked out by the Israelis. They told the Arabs to leave the area, the Arab Higher Committee, because 5 nations surrounding Israel, Egypt, Syria, Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, and Jordan, I believe it was, were going to destroy Israel. They thought it would take a matter of days or weeks, and then all the Arabs could come back. And of course, it didn't work out that way. Israel beat all 5. Same thing in 1967. Gamal Abdel Nasser, the president of Egypt, was boasting about how I'm going to soon be giving a speech from Tel Aviv. We're going to destroy Israel now completely, once and for all. And of course, the 6-Day War, Israel destroyed all the forces that were arrayed against it. And so you got to wonder, from an Islamic theological standpoint, how is it that Allah guarantees victory to the righteous and says that humiliation and disgrace will follow the Jews wherever they go, and yet why did he allow for 1948 and 1967, to say nothing of 73 and everything else?
And everything since then, and Western nations just being in general massively more powerful than Muslims and so on. And that is interesting because Mohammed Hijab did a poll, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, but he asked Muslims who are following him, specifically about those Muslims who doubt whether their religion is true sometimes. And he asked, when you doubt whether your religion is true, what is it that's causing your doubts? The number one answer, which was like 50% or something like that, was moral problems with Muhammad. So that was number one. But interestingly, the number 2 response was the weakness of the ummah. Right? They're supposed to be strong, right, and yet they're weak. So interestingly, this is something that really bothers lots of Muslims. What are we doing? What's going on here? We're supposed to be conquering the entire world. We're supposed to be able to, I mean, there are 2 billion of us, and you got 15, 16 million Jews on the planet. 2 billion of them, and we just can't do anything with these guys. They crush us every single time. It's been bothering them for a long time. It really bothers lots of Muslims. But the what they think is, Allah's just testing us, or we haven't cracked down enough and imposed Sharia diligently enough and weeded out heresy. So he's testing us, or he's punishing us for something. It never crosses their mind. Maybe your religion just ain't true.
Yeah. And this does lead to more fanaticism, because if you think Allah's testing us, you think, well, we must not be righteous enough because Allah promises victory to the righteous. So we have to get more righteous. And what's the greatest deed, David, than this, of which there is no better?
Jihad.
There you go. And
so
so
yeah, you're right. This is a matter of fact, guys, that is what Robert just said there. That is why you got ISIS. That is exactly why you got ISIS. There's a reason the leader called himself Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. He's the Abu Bakr of Baghdad. What did Abu Bakr do? Well, after Muhammad died, you had all these people who wanted to apostatize, wanted to not pay zakat to the Muslim government, according to the Muslim sources that these guys believe in. Abu Bakr told everyone, if you rebel in any way, I don't just mean you're renouncing Islam, I mean if you do not obey your leader, I am coming to kill you. I will slaughter every last one of you unless you submit. And he purified and cleansed the Muslim community. They look at that and say, see, after he did that, then you got this period of rapid Islamic expansion. And therefore, that's the goal now. We have to purify our own community of all heresy and hypocrisy and so on. Then Allah will bless us to take over the world. So they go complete diehard Sharia. That's why people are watching it going, what? Why are they killing Shias? That means they're not real Muslims. That means they're not real Muslims. Like, what are you talking about? It's exactly what they're supposed to do if they're cleansing the Muslim community. And so, fortunately, they did everything they were supposed to do and still got crushed. You still have pockets of ISIS here and there, but didn't get the global conquest they were hoping for. Hopefully, I mean, here's the thing, though, Robert. All this, maybe Allah's testing us, and if we just go really, really hardcore, then maybe he'll bless us. Well, guess what? You had the Muslim Brotherhood. You had ISIS. You had the Iranian Revolution. You had the extreme hardliners. They're all losing. So what else you got? And I don't think they have a plan B after this. I think we're getting a big tantrum and a bunch of attempts to try and go back to the glory days and try to be strong and stuff again. If this falls apart, I don't know. I don't think they got a plan B after this one.
I don't think so, because the Quran just tells them exactly that. It's a 1-to-1 equation. If you are righteous, if you obey Allah, you will succeed in this world and the next. And so if you don't succeed in this world, you must not be pleasing Allah enough. You got to get more fanatical. And so you end up being a totally hardcore jihadi like ISIS. And if that's not good enough for Allah, and they got beat, then what? And so all they can do is do it even more. So we're probably in for more of it. Almost certainly in for more of it. But you know what else is a funny thing about this, David? And that is, it all goes back to Islamic theology, which is the one thing, of course, Western analysts never consider when they're dealing with these issues. And even the losses that they suffered against the Israelis were in large part because of Islamic assumptions. Have you ever read From Cairo to Damascus, a book by John Roy Carlson?
Trying to think. I took Islam classes back in the day. I don't think so.
It's a wild book. I highly recommend it. John Roy Carlson was an Armenian American reporter in the 1940s. And he wrote another book. I forget the name of it. It's actually much more famous than From Cairo to Damascus, but I can't remember the name of it, where he went undercover among American Nazis right around the time, right before World War II broke out. And that's fascinating enough. But after World War II, he went to Egypt and he joined up with Egyptian forces and traveled to fight against Israel. And he met Hassan al-Banna, the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood, says that he was this ratty, repulsive little guy and totally unimpressive. And he travels with the Muslim soldiers, and he says that what they would tend to do would be they would fire all their ammo in the morning out up into the air without aiming at anything. They'd just fire all the ammo until they had no more left. And they would say, Allah will guide the bullets, because, of course, they're totally fatalistic. They believe that Allah controls everything. So they figure if they're right and righteous, and they're good Muslims, and they show up and shoot bullets, Allah will guide the bullets into the Jews. And so they would fire all their ammo, and at noon they'd be out of ammo, and they'd go play dominoes all afternoon, and then go do it again the next morning. And then they wonder why they lost. But it makes perfect sense in terms of Islamic theology. If Allah is in absolute control of every little thing, that is his active will, there's no idea of the permissive will that is in Christianity, then obviously he's not going to let the bullets go to waste.
But that's kind of what we're talking about, right? It's like, if you have your theology and it's basically, hey, my theology is true, therefore I will do this and this will be the result, and then it's not the result at all, it should like call into question your assumption that your theology is true. In other words, if hey, I believe this is true, so I'll just point my gun at random and Allah will give me the victory. He's not. I don't know.
Yep.
Seems like something should click.
You'd
at some
think
point.
they would think about it, yeah.
Fortunately, Allah just chose a bunch of morons for that one.
Speaking of morons, I got another story over here. I got so many morons. Yeah, this is the arm of Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. And on it is, as you can see, a tattoo that says Deus Vult, which is the Crusader slogan, God wills it. And then underneath it, in Arabic, it says kafir, or unbeliever, infidel. And this has caused a lot of rage among people. There were all kinds of stories. Let me get some here. We had Newsweek saying that Hegseth has ignited controversy after revealing a previously unnoticed tattoo on his right forearm that reads kafir in Arabic, a word that translates to infidel or non-believer. Now, how he ignited controversy, all he did was get caught in a picture with his tattoo showing. Big deal. USA Today says that he's drawing criticism for what some say is a sign of hostility toward Muslims. And Nihad Awad, the executive director of the Council on American Islamic Relations, he says, tattooing the Arabic word kafir, which essentially refers to a person who knowingly conceals or denies fundamental divine truths on his body, is a sign of anti-Muslim hostility. Now, what does the Quran call Christians and Jews and everybody else?
All kinds of things, but kafirs are among them.
Yes. Very specifically in terms of Christianity, you got 517 and 572 saying unbelievers are those who say Allah is the Messiah, Jesus the Son of Mary, a clear rejection of the divinity of Christ, and the word used is kafara, which is kafir. That's the word. So Nihad Awad is essentially saying that Hegseth has shown anti-Muslim hostility by calling himself what the Quran calls him.
And that is, I mean, that's like extreme letting the cat out of the bag. It's like the Quran's like, kafirs, 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 kafirs. And some guy goes, okay, I'm a kafir. Oh my goodness, it's the end of the world. How could someone do this? It's the worst thing ever.
Yep.
I mean, seriously, it should just be like, are you saying that this is false? Is this false? Is this a false label on me? Am I not? Am I wrong? Because if you Muslims agree that this is false and that I, as a follower of Christ, am not a kafir, I'll remove it. I'll remove it. Just say it. Just say that this is false and that I'm not a kafir. I'll change my tattoo to anything you want. You name it.
Yeah, he'll get one that says Muslim. All right, we got some jihad here. Not just stupid infidels.
Hey, hold on.
Yeah.
Hey, we should do something fun and all go get kafir tattoos as a sign of solidarity.
Yeah, I've never gotten a tattoo. I'm too old for that. I don't know.
Yeah, you're never too old for a tattoo, Robert.
Younger generations of people have tattoos. In my day, only sailors had tattoos. Anyway, I don't know, David. We'll talk about it. We'll see. Maybe that would be a great thing if I got a Kafir tattoo. Um,
It'd be a funny video.
it would. It would. Maybe I could get one of those ones I used to get when I was 5, where you soak it in water and put it on your arm, and it stays there for what, an hour or two.
They had those back that far?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Those I got lots of those, but they didn't last, oddly enough. All right, lots of jihad in Africa this week, David, and it's interesting to note that in every one of these stories, they either attacked government soldiers or the government says, we're going to get these guys, don't you worry. And they always say that. They never do anything. Burkina Faso, they had an ambush. Several dozen soldiers and civilian auxiliaries were killed in a jihad attack in eastern Burkina Faso. Regular army soldiers and civilian volunteers were targeted in a violent attack in the main city of Diapaga. All right, and that was in retaliation, the jihadis said, because the army had started a sweep in that area. So you got to wonder, why is it that the army can carry out a sweep and can't keep the jihadis from striking back? Same question out of Nigeria, which is always a hotbed of jihad. Plateau State, Bassa County, 2 devastating attacks in less than 24 hours. What the International Christian Concern calls a gruesome ambush of 3 Christians who were on their way home. John Avia, Sunday Vixen, and Peter Vixen. And a local elder says, for years we have pleaded for help. How many more lives must be lost before the government takes meaningful action? You got to wonder if the government even wants to take meaningful action.
Yeah,
And
we've talked about this before. It's basically either the government is complicit, they're part of it, and they have to pretend they're not, but they do their role by ignoring it when it happens, or they're just scared of being on the jihadi list as well, and so they won't protect the Christians. And that's sort of, I mean, either one of those is very believable, and in reality, it's probably a combination. You probably have some government officials who are on the side, and others who are just scared. But I mean, it's the same thing you see everywhere. It's just politicians refuse to defend and protect the people they're supposed to protect because they're scared. They're scared. Yep. It's just there are places where you're actually scared of being slaughtered, being on the list to be slaughtered, and or Western nations where you're just scared of being called a name. So I won't protect these girls. Why? Because, well, I might be called a name. Can't have that.
that's going to be the demise of Britain right there. But anyway, also in Nigeria, in Iha Amufu, Isi's Uzu local government area of Enugu State, 44 farm settlements known as Ndiagu have been overrun by jihadis. 44 farm settlements. And let's see here. This lady who is on the scene said, the dangerous thing is that the Fulani people, those are the jihadis, are planning to come and take over the entire Iha Amufu area, especially. And of course, that is indeed true. They intend to take over that area and all the other areas of Nigeria and ultimately establish a caliphate. But all is not well among the Muslims in this area. In Niger, right next door to Nigeria, there was an attack by a jihad group, killed 44 people last Friday in the rural commune of Kokoru, near the tri-state border with Mali and Burkina Faso. But the thing about this one, David, is that the 44 victims were Muslims in a mosque. And the jihadis came, surrounded the mosque, and began to massacre the people coming out. Now, why would they do that? That proves that they're not real Muslims, right? Because why would they attack other Muslims?
I mean, Muhammad was commanded to attack Muslims that are regarded as hypocrites. And so you got all kinds of problems there. So Surah 9, verse 73, Muhammad said that he was ordered to wage jihad, not only against the unbelievers, but also against the hypocrites. Again, I just mentioned Abu Bakr when he fought the apostate wars. But it's interesting. It wasn't just people who say, I renounce Islam, who were in the apostate category. It was anyone who just wasn't doing everything the Muslim caliph ordered them to do. He put all of them in the apostate category. And it's been like that ever since. And this is especially dangerous ground because Muhammad says he's ordered not just to kill and wage jihad against unbelievers, but also against hypocrites. But then, according to the hadith, he says that 72 of 73 sects of Islam are all heretical. It's like, wait, what?
I love that one. I mean, how the heck can you know if you're in the right one? You're in big trouble if you're.
And everyone thinks theirs is the right one.
You got a 72 out of 73 chance to be on the way to hell. Anyway.
Good luck. Better you than us.
All right. Back to Nigeria this is a terrible story, David, as they all are, of course. The Bauchi State Police Command has arrested a businessman, Nuru Isa, for allegedly flogging his 24-year-old wife, Wasila Abdullahi, to death over an argument about the ingredients and fruits designated for breaking the Ramadan fast. He flogged Wasila, who was his second wife, and that doesn't mean he divorced the first one, till she collapsed, and upon her collapse, she was rushed to the hospital where she was confirmed dead. Al-Haji Nuru Isa is 50 years old. Wasila Abdullahi was 24.
Pretty rough. I'm not sure. I don't know how you deal with that one from an Islamic perspective, because Muhammad, according to their hadith, said a man will not be asked as to why he beat his wife, meaning it's his right to beat her. You stay out of it. So you have that. You do have, not in the Quran, it gets added the word lightly as far as the beatings, which isn't in the Arabic, but they are basing that on a hadith which says, basically, you don't give your wife the heavy beating, where the heavy beating is a beating that does like permanent damage, like breaking bones and things like that. So yeah, I'm not sure how you'd classify this one, because you're not supposed to be beating her to death unless she's done something that would put her in the apostate category. And then you could, in the honor killing category or something like that, then you could get around it. But if he's just, you could just be lashing someone and they could, like, their heart could stop or something like that. So you could be beating her in an Islamic way and she can't take it. And Sahih al-Bukhari 5825, a guy beat his wife until her skin turned green. So you're allowed to do some serious beating. So yeah, I don't know. Hope someone punishes him.
This is the problem. And even the lightly crowd, that is those who insist that you should only beat her lightly. That's a subjective judgment.
Exactly.
What's lightly to you might not be lightly to me. And so
they use that deceptively to say, oh, it's lightly, so it must just be tapping her with a toothbrush or something like that. No, the lightly is distinguished from the heavy beating where you'd actually lash someone and like you're doing permanent bodily harm. And so you're causing her pain. You can you can do all. You could beat her until her skin turns green. So that's a serious beating. You're leaving marks. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the lightly can't get people off the hook on this one.
Indeed. All right, another terrible story. This one's out of Uganda. A Muslim woman killed a Christian couple, but she did it by poisoning, and in the process, her daughter walked up and ate some of the food and also died. And so you would think that this might be something that would wake up the poisoner, but probably not, as once again. Doreen Nairuba died on March 16th from eating poisoned food prepared by Hanifa Hamiyat in Nabiganda town, Butaleja district. And this was a 6 months pregnant lady, Doreen Nairuba. And what happened was Nairuba had been sharing her Christian faith with Mariam Kapisa, the 18-year-old daughter of Hanifa Hamiyat. And so Hamiyat was enraged that they brought her to a church service and that they were preaching the gospel to her. And so she prepared poisoned food for Doreen Nairuba, ended up killing Doreen Nairuba and her husband, but also Miriam had some of the food and was also killed.
Wait. Her own daughter.
That's right. The daughter of the
I thought you meant.
woman.
I thought. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, someone actually mentioned that who had seen it on who had seen you post it. They mentioned that in my live stream with AP earlier. Yeah, I thought when you said matter of fact, I thought this when someone shared it. I thought daughter. I thought you meant the daughter of the Christian couple. But yeah, so her
No, the
own
daughter of the Muslim. Yeah, she killed her
Wow.
own daughter while trying to kill the Christian. So this is
Wow.
why I say you'd think she would think maybe Allah's stuff. Allah's not protecting me like he claimed that he would.
You'd think.
You'd think,
You would
but
think.
you'd be wrong.
You would definitely be wrong.
All right, there's much more of the violent jihad, but there's also much more idiocy out of Austria in Vienna. Always good for idiocy. We have an elementary school in Vienna, Leopoldstadt, that celebrated Ramadan, celebrated Eid al-Fitr, but did not
Celebrated Adolf Hitler. What?
No, David, you don't want to be a crackhead clown individual here. They celebrated Eid al-Fitr, and they did not celebrate Christmas. They only celebrate the Muslim feasts now in this Vienna school. And so that's what's that going to be like in another 10 years?
Oh, just going to keep getting better and better, Robert. But yeah, we've seen that. I just made a video recently because they a school canceled the Easter service. Now, I have to say, if a school says, "Oh, we used to celebrate Easter, but we don't now," it's the reason, right? It's the reason. It said because of inclusivity. We want inclusivity, and there are students who aren't Christians, and therefore, since there are students who aren't Christians, they'll be offended by this, and therefore, for the sake of inclusivity, we have to cancel Easter. And there was another story just a few months ago, same exact thing. It was a school canceling Christmas activities because of inclusivity. And in the video, I asked, I was like, "What? Why? Like, you can pressure people with words, but the British people seem especially susceptible to just being called a name or hearing a word or something like that. And it's like, oh, we have to." With the grooming gangs, they were all scared of the word Islamophobe or racist or something like that. And it's like, okay, yeah, you can go ahead and do what you want with tens of thousands of young girls. Just don't call us that name. And apparently you can just cancel anything. You say, hey, you need to shut this church down. Why? To be inclusive. And they'll go, okay, let's turn it into a mosque to be inclusive. You've got to be inclusive. It's like, how is your entire population controlled by words? Your luck is the Germans didn't figure that one out. They're doing it all wrong. They're sitting there dropping bombs and like, you can't stop us with bombs. And the entire time, all you had to do was call them a name, and they'd have been like, okay, we submit, mein Führer.
That's it. That's right. All right. Meanwhile, we got a story out of Germany here. And this was from last Saturday. Two men, homosexuals, were walking on Augsburg's Maximilianstrasse. And a group of young Muslims came up and started to beat them, knock them to the ground, kicked them, and called them a bunch of gay slurs. And this one guy was arrested. And David, it turned out that he previously in Augsburg beat a firefighter to death. And what I wondered when I saw this story was, why is he free now, several years, I think it's 3 or 4 years, no, 5 years after he beat the guy to death? He's still walking around on the same streets, and he beats up some more people. That is incredible stupidity as far as I'm concerned on the part of the German authorities. This guy is not even a German native. He holds German, Turkish, and Lebanese citizenship. And maybe if he keeps at it, by the time he's an old man, he will collect all citizenships. But why is he walking around now, 5 years after beating somebody to death?
I don't know. I mean, we're seeing it in the UK with their two-tier system, but they think somehow that they're being They're showing their tolerance and their progressiveness and so on by letting people get away with stuff or giving people reduced penalties and so on. In reality, you know, we've been saying this for years. It's the soft bigotry of low expectations, where they're basically saying, oh, yeah, you broke the rule, you committed this crime, but you don't know any better because you're not civilized like us. So we just have to punish you less. And they let them go, and then they go out and do the same thing. And then some people say, how come you don't ship these guys back where they came from and so on? That's where they can't go back there. They'll be in trouble if they go back there from all the stuff they've done. And so we have to keep them here. It's like, okay. And what do? Same thing.
There was a wild story, David, but I think we missed it. I think it was one of the weeks I was on the road, but I just could not believe it. I don't think we talked about it anyway, but did you see the story about the guy in Britain from Pakistan, and he was convicted of sexual abuse of a minor, and he was arguing that he must not be sent back to Pakistan because his family would be all upset that they found out he was a pedophile?
I recall that story. I don't know if we covered it or I saw it on your site or something.
It's just so ludicrous to me.
Yeah.
That's the last thing they would care about in Pakistan.
Yeah, I mean, just think about that. If that's actually your reasoning, hey, why not just say, hey, all pedophiles of the Muslim world, come here, because we don't want you to get in trouble, even though you wouldn't be, because it's normal where you are. Inspiring Philosophy just shared something recently. It was an actual academic study, and it was pointing out how it was basically standard in the Muslim world for centuries up until very recently to have sex with adolescent boys, for grown men to have sex with adolescent boys. This was normal across the Muslim world. It was only because Western nations and Western leaders started finding out about it and like calling it out, and that's when they had to reduce the practice, or at least keep it a bit more quiet. But it was just considered completely normal, and you weren't considered gay until the boy developed a beard. Once you started growing a beard, then you were gay if you had sex with him. But before then, nope, it was just like a woman.
And so that's still very common in Afghanistan.
Oh yeah.
And we saw the American army had orders to ignore it. Mm-hmm. They weren't allowed to call attention to it, try to stop it, anything.
Yeah, because you might hurt their feelings, and then they won't be on your side, and then you'll be a target for jihad. Pretty weird.
Incredible.
I mean, just imagine that. You cannot stop this guy from raping this kid because it will set the population against you. Like, wait, who are you fighting for here?
Yeah.
Whose side are you on? The side of the side. Oh, you can't say you're on the side of the pedophiles because you got pedophiles all over. It's a weird situation.
It rendered the whole... I mean, it was kind of amazing. I wrote a book a few years back called Who Lost Afghanistan? And I argue in there that the whole thing was pointless, the American presence there, precisely because of things like this. They didn't go in there and say, we're going to protect women, we're going to protect these little boys, we're going to fight for human rights. They just went totally along with Sharia and the Afghan practices. And it was totally pointless, misguided effort. But anyway, it's another story. Berlin. In Berlin, hundreds of Muslims gathered to break the Ramadan fast last week when Ramadan was still going on. And they did it right in front of one of the most prominent churches, the Protestant Nazareth Church in Berlin. And the district mayor said, this is great, all this Allahu Akbaring and everything that we're seeing in this square in Berlin, because it's a sign against Germany's shift to the right. So she thought, see, we're going to celebrate Ramadan to show up the German right wing. Mm-hmm. So she's going to get rewarded, right? The Muslims are going to think, you're our friend, and they will march together into the glorious multicultural future, right?
Yeah, as soon as they get the upper hand, and then... Sorry, lady, they're not going to be like, oh, they're against the right.
Yep.
Gosh, they live in fantasy land. The crazy part is just, this is so easy to figure out. There's nothing complicated here. I mean, you've got the dumbest people in the world who understand this, but you combine all the great political minds and journalists and educators and entertainers and so on, all the great academics in the West, and all together they can't come up with one brain cell to understand one of the easiest ideologies in history to understand.
Indeed. And speaking of which, this is an Indian politician, and her name is Garima Mehra Dasani, and she is from the Congress Party in India, which is not a Muslim party. It's just sort of a standard leftist party. And she is on This Week in Jihad this week because she was responding to the government of the state of Uttarakhand, which is taking action against illegal madrasas in the state. And she said this is bad because she said that the word illegal is being misused. These madrasas are not actually illegal. They are just undocumented. And the word jihad is similarly misused. And she said, jihad is a positive term. If translated, it means revolution or change for the better.
I must have missed that one. I've never even heard that one.
Yeah, revolution or change for the better.
Oh, I forgot. In Islam, you can just say anything means anything.
Well, she's not even a Muslim politician. She's a non-Muslim politician. But she thinks jihad is great. And of course, she's a leftist, so she thinks revolution is wonderful and jihad is just revolution. Is she wrong? Surely she must be right, right?
Yeah, guys, jihad just means struggle. Just like my struggle, just like Mein Kampf. Saying, it's just, Mein Kampf, it just means a change for the better. Yeah, according to who? But anyway, so jihad means struggle, can be used of various kinds of struggle. Sadly, in the Muslim sources, you do have Muhammad defining what is the best kind of jihad. And guess what? It's the violent kind that's done to subjugate people for Allah. That's the good kind. That's the best kind.
Indeed. All right, a few more things before we will get to the super chats, if you got a few minutes for that. But meanwhile, over in Somalia, David, there was an 8-year-old girl, and she went missing 6 months ago. She went missing. Nobody knew where she was. Everybody was searching for her, and then it turned out they found her in Puntland, and it turned out that she was married.
Mm-hmm.
You heard
to
this one.
Sheikh Mahmoud. Me and AP just went through that story, but you are correct, sir.
Okay.
Sheikh Mahmoud.
That's right. And what did Sheikh Mahmoud say justified his abducting this 8-year-old?
Well, the first thing he said is, I'm just teaching her the Quran. And then they're like, I'm not buying it. And then he said, yeah, we're married. Turns out the girl's father had arranged it, but the rest of the family weren't on board, and therefore he had to hide it from them. But yeah, Sheikh Mahmoud, you got to read the passage because it's awesome. But Sheikh Mahmoud said, what are you talking about? It's justified by Muhammad and by the Shafi'i school. And of course, the BBC tries to spin it and say, there are all these other scholars who say something different. And it's total nonsense. It's not just the Shafi'i school, it's all the schools. But he was correct. So, I mean, hats off to the BBC for finally, acknowledging, hey, here's at least a guy who says that it's because of Islam. Normally, guys can be screaming from the rooftops what their motivations are, and the BBC won't report it. So they did it, and then they tried to cover it up for their ignorant viewers, which is most of their readers. But yeah, it's at least they acknowledge that the guy said it was from Islam. Then they try to cover it up. What about all the scholars who disagree?
Yes, they did not quote, however, all the scholars who agree. And I've got them right here. Turkey's Diyanet, the Directorate of Religious Affairs, said girls as young as 9 can marry. Okay, so she was 8. Ishaq Akintola he's a professor, of Islamic eschatology and director of Muslim Rights Concern in Nigeria. He says Islam has no age barrier in marriage, and Muslims have no apology for those who refuse to accept this. We are proud of that. And Dr. Abd al-Hamid al-Ubaidi, who is in Iraq, an expert on Sharia, he says there is no minimum marriage age for either men or women in Islamic law. Dr. Salih bin Fawzan, out of Saudi Arabia, says there's no minimum age for marriage. Girls can be married even if they are in the cradle. And Pakistan's Council of Islamic Ideology says Islam does not forbid the marriage of young children. So the BBC would say all those people and Sheikh Mahmoud misunderstand Islam.
Yeah. Oopsie. Basically 14 centuries of Muslim scholars until you get down to the very recent period where people start calling out Muhammad and Aisha. And then suddenly everyone in history completely misunderstood the hundreds of hadiths and Surah 65 verse 4 and so on.
That's it. All right, so that concludes the jihad portion of the evening. And so let's go to Super Chats. We got, I remember how to do this. Oh, yeah. E4 Mafia says shekels, shekels for Robert. We love you. I think once again I should remind you, I am an Orthodox Christian. I am of Greek descent. I am not actually Jewish, but that's okay because I'm happy to stand with the Jews against the jihad. Just wrote a book, Anti-Semitism, History and Myth. Get it now. Songs of Relief says DW. I believe that's you. My calendar had a reminder set for today. Make Fareed's day. David, do a stream on 12 martyrs. Did you ask us to remind you, or am I nuts?
No, I did. And fortunately, I also remembered. So we've got Easter coming up in a couple weeks. I did want to make a good video on this. I asked Sean McDowell, because I just saw him at a conference, but I asked Sean McDowell if I could interview him about this, because he did his dissertation on this and wrote a huge book on, let's talk about the deaths of the apostles and how they died and so on. But he said I could interview him, but I have to get to him. So if I can work that into my schedule, I'm going to go and make that video and interview.
Excellent. Well, that's something to look forward to. Meanwhile, we got, let's see here. Rick Martell, Charles's boy. Robert, why isn't awareness of Islam's supremacist nature common knowledge? Well, because people lie. They lie all the time. They've been lying for decades. The establishment media lies, like David was just talking about with the BBC, but it's not just the BBC. It's every last media outlet lies about Islam and tries to cover it up. And I see it again and again and again. If you read jihadwatch.org regularly, you will see me pointing it out over and over and over. It looks as if somebody made some rule. I really think this. It must be in the guidelines for journalists or something. Every last establishment media outlet does everything it can in every possible situation to make Islam look good and shield it from criticism for crimes done in its name and in accord with its teachings. Where this directive came from and why, I don't know, but it's there.
And it's not just journalists, it's shows. I've noticed that on shows. If I'm ever watching an episode of like Law and Order or something back in the day, and if for some reason that they had a Muslim terrorist or an honor killing or something on there, the moment they bring up anything about Islam, it's like I can go like this. I can go 5, 4, 3, 2, and they go, yeah, well, the Bible, and it's always instant.
Yep. Yeah, I remember that show with Martin Sheen as the president. And some Christian lady comes up to him and says, you got to do something about the jihadis. And he starts saying, yeah, but I want to sell my daughter into slavery like it says in the Old Testament. And all these Bible quotes showing he doesn't know anything about how the Bible works or how Christianity works. But of course, that's the kind of thing that plays in the mainstream.
And that gets in people's minds over the years and stuff. Yes. And so it's just basically, guys, I mean, think about what we're up against. It's like the entire entertainment industry. It's almost all of politics. It's journalists across the board. Everyone from the time you're born bombarding you with the idea that the only possible way anyone would criticize Islam is just racism or Islamophobia. And meanwhile, it's a handful of people trying to respond to that stuff, a handful of people who don't have that power, who don't have that money backing them, and so on. But guess what? People are when people are catching on, they're catching on in our direction.
Mm-hmm. Well, reality will tell. Reality always breaks through all the lies. So eventually, there's no doubt that we will win this discussion because they can't sustain all their fictional claims about Islam. They're refuted every day on the news. Anyway, Abu Bakr al-Puff Daddy says, Dr. Spencer and D. Wood, I believe it's Dr. Wood and R. Spencer, do you believe that the Trump administration should pursue a strategy of regime change in Iran? If so, how? Military force. What do you think, David?
Um, I think, and this is the difference between most places, most Muslim places. The West pursued regime changes in like Iraq and so on, just thinking that all the people in these places want freedom and democracy and so on. You just get rid of the tyrannical leader and freedom and democracy are going to flourish, and they don't realize who they're dealing with. You take out the leader and then everyone starts bombing each other's mosques, and then you get ISIS. You have to be aware of the kind of population you're dealing with. However, if anyone actually really wants freedom and democracy, I think it's the people of Iran right now. I think that more than any other place is a place where it could actually be pulled off. But I also think that the bulk of it has to be from them, because if someone else comes and does it for them, it's always going to be, oh, you were installed by these foreign, and therefore you're illegitimate. Whereas if it's the people themselves, they would have more of a legitimate claim. And so I'm basically in favor of the U.S. or Iran kind of doing things more covertly to help the people, or maybe doing some things to toss some monkey wrenches in the system for the Ayatollahs and so on. So, but eventually, you need the people doing it themselves. It's just if you can do anything to help them along the way that doesn't make it your government that you imposed or something like that. Yeah, I'd be in favor of it, because those guys got to go.
Absolutely. And yeah, I don't think military force is necessary or warranted in this case. The people of Iran hate the regime so much, it wouldn't take much in terms of economic sanctions and other kinds of pressure to have them topple the regime, and that would be indeed be the best outcome.
Yeah, and by the way, I think it's inevitable. I mean, not completely inevitable, but I think it's going to happen, and that it's not going to be too long. The Ayatollah, the Iranian regime is going to fall eventually. It's just, hey, if you can do anything to hasten that a little bit, given the amount of evil that Iran carries out in the world, I'd be happy to see them go sooner rather than later.
All right, Tommy Bryan says the only way we'll stop watching This Week in Jihad is if they give us a Robert Like It. Or if Ali Dawa's 35 viewers storm the chat. I think Ali's got a much bigger audience than I do, but that's just
no. You missed it. You missed it the other night. We were we were in California, and we were live, and it was on AP's channel. But we were the rest of us were in a hotel room and stuff, and it was like God Logic and Inspiring Philosophy and What Do You Mean and stuff. And anyway, these guys are live. I'm over there working on my opening statement. But these guys are live, and they had 2,500 people watching live in the live stream. And then someone mentions Ali Dawa is live, but he only has 35 people watching. And we're going, 35 people? The guy's got over 1 million subscribers.
Yeah.
How does he only have 35 people? So finally, someone, I wasn't even paying attention at early on, but it was something like, hey guys, send him some charity. Guys, go over there and say hi and stuff. But a bunch of people go over from the live stream. Anyway, you see it goes from 35 up to 100, then 150, then 200, then 250. But it's all Christians going over there saying Jesus is Lord and posting it in the chat. And these guys start freaking out because no one was commenting. And all of a sudden they're getting flooded with comments. And they had to shut down the live stream and then start it up again in members only mode, because the Christians just totally overwhelmed them. But there's a hilarious clip of this happening. It was because it was live, but extremely funny stuff. Watching a bunch of Christians take over Ali Dawa's live stream and shut it down.
Oh, that's great. I'm sorry I missed it. All right, Kurzbraten says, pair character bowing down saying thank you, and thank you, Kurzbraten. Angel WVM. Hi, Robert. Big fan here. Thank you. I'm a big fan of you myself. I hope I don't lose my job because of the super chat. We'll just watch out for crackhead clown individuals. Still worth it. Thank you for the critical Quran, a.k.a. the most honest Quran. Get yours now. Get the whole set. Abu Bakr al-Pafdadi. Again, Dr. Spencer, status of your law cases in Iceland. I have no law cases in Iceland. They poisoned me in Iceland. The police report was conclusive. It showed photographs of the guys slipping the poison into the drink. It was absolutely unassailable, and the police even concluded in the report that if these people were put on trial, they would be convicted. Sindri Gerson, and I forget the other guy's name, but it's on Jihad Watch. The full police report is on Jihad Watch. Anyway, no charges were ever brought. It was clear the Icelandic government didn't want to have the publicity of the poisoning by a leftist of an American, and they just let the whole thing go. Also, I tried to bring a complaint against the doctor at the emergency room who left me to die and did none of the basic treatment. Hjaltimar Bjornsson, who he works in the United States sometimes, so watch out for him. He's dangerous. Hjaltimar Bjornsson. He didn't do any of the basic standard emergency room procedures and was clearly just hoping I would die from all the stuff they put into my system. I did not, thank God, but in any case, the health ministry or health board of whatever of Iceland refused to bring any disciplinary action against him. So he is still active. He's highly dangerous. There was a lot of negative publicity all over Iceland when I went to speak there in 2017. And I was painted as, this terrible racist Islamophobe and all that. And this guy was a very far leftist with a ponytail, this doctor, and he was very clearly, he was actually trying to tell me while I was in the emergency room that I needed to find other work and not do what I was doing. And anyway, very bad guy. Hjaltimar Bjornsson. If you happen to run into him, run the other way. Not a Simic says, God bless and keep you safe. Thank you. God has blessed me and kept me safe all these years, and thank God for that. Susan Lee says, Muhammad Khan was temporarily suspended 5 days ago. That's the Chicago cop who vandalized the rabbi's car. And it only took a year, probably because the rabbi brought suit and they got publicity about it. That's why they suspended him. But thank you, Susan. That's good to know. Moshe Cohen says, once again, YouTube didn't show me your live. Yeah, YouTube doesn't like me, but they have allowed the super chats all this time. We'll see how it shakes out. It's yet still up in the air. Mrs. Ali Dawa says on her whiteboard, Salam alaikum, Mr. Spencer. Yeah, writing this on my whiteboard. Yeah. That's not the right accent. Don't know how to put this, but you're totally my goat in it. Yes, that's my goat. That's double-edged. But anyway. Daniel Miller says, 2 of my favorite Islamophobes. Love you guys. Love you right back, Daniel Miller. Mm-hmm. And Moo J.O. says, pair character. Yeah, that's one of these symbols again. Thank you, Moo. And then we have Avi Ganuth says, a donation. Thank you, Avi. Oh, and here's Avi again. Avi says, I pray for the day that you can stopping doing this show. Until then, I wish all happy Passover and Easter. Yeah, I don't know if it'll ever happen because the jihad will continue. But in any case, we can all hope and pray for that day. Eunuch Petsu says, why Indian anti-terrorist agents posted near mosques? I don't know anything about that. You know anything about that, David?
Nope.
No idea. Sorry, don't know what you're referring to. Halo Z, I finally got Robert Spencer's book, The Critical Quran, in the mail, and I'm excited to read this. This will help me with Islamic dilemma. God bless. Thank you, Halo Z. Hope you enjoy the book. Let me know what you think of it. Jesse says, Robert, it was rumored back in our day some of those lickin' stick tats were laced with LSD. Could explain a lot. It could, but I never got hold of those. I missed those ones too. Yeah, I was in my right mind at all times.
And guys, kids would make the mistake. They would lick the sticker. They would lick the sticker and stick it on there, and then it would be all smeared. No, you lick your arm where you're putting it, and then you put it on there, and then it's crystal clear. Had to find that out after wasting a bunch of those.
That's exactly,
I was like, why is it it's not clear? It's all smeared. Lick it and stick it on there, and it's not working.
Connor says, question for Dr. Spencer. How is it that you attained so much basedness? Basedness is good. Am I right, David?
Yes, that is good.
Thank you. I don't know how, but I appreciate it.
I'd asked my kids about that one years ago. Now me and AP use it regularly, but I remember just one time someone said I'm based, and I turned to my kids and I was like, someone said I'm based. What's that mean? They go, no, it's good. I'm like, oh, okay. Because
I don't know. I think I'm acid, not based. Rigo Barney, Mo could not perform his jihad. That's why he married a child. Okay, I'm not sure we want to go there. Isaac Chu says, can you recommend 3 books by Robert Spencer? You know what, Isaac? I can recommend 31 books by Robert Spencer. But if you demand that it only be 3. David, do you want to do this? Because then it's not coming from me. If you like 3 of my books, that is.
I would say definitely History of Jihad. Best book on jihad out there. That's when people ask me what they should read on Islam, that's one of the 5 books I would always recommend, as far, and that's including like apologetics books. It would be like, okay, start with Nabil's book, Seeking Allah, Finding Jesus, then go Answering Islam and stuff. But to learn jihad, it's the History of Jihad. You've got the Critical Quran, and then after that, I would kind of say depends on what you're interested in. Depends on what you're interested in. In other words, if you're interested in the situation with Israel, he's got his book, The Palestinian Delusion. If you're interested in Muhammad, would kind of depend on which view you go with, because he's got The Truth About Muhammad, which is basically what you find about Muhammad in the Muslim sources, and then you've got the more skeptical positions and so on. But yeah, it would kind of depend on what you're interested in. But you definitely need those too. And then after that, what you're interested in.
Thank you, David. Appreciate that. And then we have Goat Hub says, Robert went to church last Sunday. The deacon looked exactly like you. You were literally everywhere. I don't know what church you were at. I am not a deacon myself. I am an Orthodox layman. And I don't think I actually was in church last Sunday. I'm not sure, all the Sundays. Yeah, I was not in church last Sunday. I'm sorry. I wasn't just lazing around. I was in transit, and it was unavoidable. But in any case, that wasn't me, certainly, and I'm no deacon. But in any case, thank you. Eileen Sloan says, thank you, Eileen Sloan. And then we have AG97 says, hey, Robert, there's a new dangerous Dawa character named Beck Lover. Please look into it, making a lot of noise on social media. You heard of this clown, David?
I have not heard of that clown.
I have not either. Mrs. Ali Dawa, once again, says, yeah, just made a new song. Yeah, listen, my goat milk brings all the sheikhs to the yard. Alhamdulillah, it's better than yours. Alhamdulillah, it's better than yours. I could teach you, but you'll pay jizya.
You know that
Very
song?
Nice. I've heard the name. I only have heard the song.
It's the song of my milkshake, bring boys to the yard. My man is better than yours. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I'm an old guy, David. Give me Miles Davis.
There is, in fact, someone called Beck Lover on Twitter. I looked on Twitter real quick, but there is a Beck Lover.
Don't know the man or woman.
Nor do I.
All right, well, we have come to the end of the Super Chats. I thank you all for all your kind support, and thank you for sticking with us all this time. The Jihad tends to be kind of samey, but we try to make it a little more interesting here, giving you the deep background. We will continue to do that, ladies and gentlemen. As long as there's Jihad, we'll be there. And until then, we'll be back here, that is. And until then, pray, hope, and don't worry.